Okay, yeah, I guess we're going live, so we'll see how this looks on the platforms. We can probably look around at it a little bit right now as we get it going here, but
Yeah.
um, let's see what it looks like on Twitter. Okay, yeah, we're right there on Twitter. It just shows us up as going live. We'll see. All right, so um, this whole Bo Schembechler, Dr. Robert Anderson thing is awful. I mean, there's a lot of adjectives you could use. Awful, gross, sickening, disgusting. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's really no good thing to say about it. Obviously, um, I'm. I was asked to go on Rico Beard's podcast today. He's a Spartan grad, very outwardly spoken Spartan supporter. Likes bad things to happen to Michigan, which I mean that's part of it. I mean, you and I think
Yeah.
would both go openly on the record and say we don't mind when bad things happen to Michigan State or Ohio State or Notre Dame or whatever. This goes beyond that. This is not a football thing. This is not a sports thing. This is just like a humanity thing, and it's bad. It's really bad. I know there's been situations at Penn State. There was something at Michigan State. There was something at Ohio State. There's been. I mean, this is not like the first. It's not a groundbreaker, an icebreaker. But it's bad. It's just really bad all the way around. I was on there with him talking about it for a while. You put up kind of a recap story of it today. We didn't really get into the opinion side of things yet. That's kind of what this is for. We're going to have a little bit more on the website about it tomorrow. First of all, let's just and you don't need to go into as much detail as you kind of typed out because I just don't even like saying some of the words. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of that bad. But a quick recap rundown of what the article said today that you put up.
Well, it goes into detail. I guess how extensive it was, how big of a problem it was. It certainly seems like it's something that was common knowledge within the university, particularly people tied to the athletic community. And yeah, it's if you read the report in the article that I put up earlier today, it's a tough read, man. It's really difficult to make it through that. And it's one of those situations where you just walk away from it like you feel bad and you're not really sure. You look at the situation now and the folks that were involved and you're not really sure what you can do about it at this point. And so I think the bottom line is a lot of bad things went on. This report sort of kind of puts Michigan's feet to the fire and says, hey, had they done X, Y, and Z, some of this could have been prevented. And unfortunately they dropped the ball, and now you have a situation where Michigan's going to have to handle this thing very carefully. You saw how it played out with Penn State. And I know that a lot of people from the outside looking into Happy Valley, we're looking at that situation like it was almost cult-like, with Paterno and the way people viewed him, and how hard it was for some fans to come to grips with what actually took place. And I think, Michigan typically prides itself on character and who they are as people, and ethics and standards and all of that stuff. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they go about handling this in the coming days.
Yeah, yeah. It's So so now the question becomes, what does Michigan do? It's called Schembechler Hall. That's the name of the football building. If Bo knew about this, which it sounds like he certainly did. Let me back up. I actually think that you and I were the same age. For everybody out there, we're 37, 36 years old. I don't know exactly when your birthday is, but
Yeah, 37.
we graduated at the same time. I'll be 37 next month. I'm probably not the best person to ask about this because Bo Schembechler coached his last game at Michigan when I was 5. So it's going to come off as sounding a little bit harsh. I don't really care. I don't care if he's never mentioned again. It really wouldn't bother me one bit. I wouldn't think about Michigan any differently. I have no emotions or memories connected to the program or him when he was there. It just doesn't register for me. And I actually think people like you and I, the age that we are, is probably like the line. Maybe a couple years older than us. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe if you're like 42, 40 to 42, you actually have some legitimate memories of what Michigan football was like under Bo Schembechler. For guys like us and younger, we don't. And the guys that are playing there absolutely don't. Like, I don't think any player on that whole team would care if they never heard his name again. And I'm not trying to like be harsh and insensitive to him and what he was as a person and what he did for the program and what he was as an ambassador, which now all that is also tarnished. But I don't care. Rip the statue down, take his name off the building, rename everything that has to do with him. Those who stay will be champions, which is a joke at this point anyway. Get rid of that. I like the team. I know that's from one of his famous speeches. I know that he kind of coined that, but he didn't like come up with teamwork. Like that's not an original Bo Schembechler idea. But honestly, like fine, get rid of the team too. None of that is going to affect me one bit. I'm not going to think less of Michigan. I'm not going to be like, oh man, all that storied tradition is just gone now. It doesn't register for me like that. It really doesn't, and it's because, again, he was done coaching when I was 5 years old, 1989. I don't remember anything about him. So for me, I think you get out in front of this. I think Jim Harbaugh and Ward Manuel should absolutely speak on this publicly. And I think you should do those things. I think the statue should probably come down. I think the name of the building needs to be renamed, and every little, picture or portrait of him around the building and every little quote that they've blown up and put everywhere probably needs to be taken down. And we've had this discussion before. We almost kind of found it like laughable that so much of Bo was hung on to when Michigan hasn't really been that good since then. And it's kind of like the those who stay will be champions thing. Like, bro, that's not really true. Like,
and that's what I was going to say is that, I'm in the same camp. Like I guess prior to all of this, appreciate the history with Bo Schembechler and sort of everything that it contributed or that he contributed to Michigan football. But at the same time, I'd be lying if I said I was enamored with it. But it is, Bo Schembechler, even though his time has come and gone, has continued to be a part of this football program and this university. And to the point where it's almost like a focal point, like he's everywhere. His sayings are on the wall, his statues are around campus, and I just think it's going to be a difficult thing for people that are connected to the university and football fans to get to a place where, generally speaking, they're accepting the reality that it's probably time to rename some things and take down some statues and really sort of reevaluate, what part of Michigan's history we want to prop up. And it's weird, man, because this report comes out yesterday. There's a lot that's in it, and I'm just not sure. I don't know where do you go from here? Like, yeah, you can take down some statues. Yeah, you can rename some things. And that's a really good start. But what else can you do at this point? I'm kind of at a loss. It's an unfortunate situation. I hate that it happened, particularly for the people that had to go through it. But it seems like a lot of people that were involved and a lot of people that could have and should have done something are either, no longer with the university or no longer alive. And so it's a really weird situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody joining us, we had upwards of 100. Now it's dropped down to 50. And I'm guessing as we do this more often, we will see some more regular traffic, hopefully. So if you're watching, thank you. First of all, watching or listening, thank you. We're kind of working through this StreamYard thing. We can see some comments. I threw one up here from our Facebook page, Michael Kowalski. I agree, man. I think the statue has to come down. I don't know how this report comes out and you invite recruits and their families to the building and you walk by this giant Bo Schembechler statue and have the building named after him when this is all common knowledge now. And I know he's passed on. I know the doctor has passed on. I know they can't give their side of the story. I don't care. I really don't. I mean, when you start to hear about the numbers and how many people this apparently affected, it's upward. It's like in the 800s, right? Like that's insane.
And that's just from what they were able to uncover, and as is the case with these things, a lot of it goes unreported. A lot of people don't report what had happened to them just because it is such, you feel a sense of embarrassment and a sense of shame. And it's, it's 800 incidents that they were able to uncover. But typically, when things like this happen, there is a whole host of other issues that just never were reported or somebody never came forward. And so, it's really unfortunate. And I do agree with what you said. I think, absolutely Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh have to come out and say something. Especially a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who it's not like he avoids these types of things traditionally. I know that he's pretty outspoken when it comes to like advocacy on certain things. And it would really be a poor move if not tomorrow, sometime this week, these guys got to come out and they have to at least say something about it. But it's one of those things where, as soon as they do address it, people are going to tune in. They're going to pick apart everything they say. So they've got to get the message right and consistent. And regardless of what you think of Bo Schembechler at this point, the reality is he is a big part of Michigan football, the University of Michigan. And when you address something like this, there's just got to be a considerable amount of thought that goes into it.
Yeah, and when you mention, Harbaugh and Ward Manuel speaking on this, I think it's a must. I think it's a necessity. They both played for Bo. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's got a giant picture of him hanging in his office with Bo's hand on his neck, kind of an in-game moment, when Jim was playing quarterback. And I was talking on, like I said, I was on a podcast earlier with Rico, and I can't really imagine what's going through Jim Harbaugh's head right now, because I mean, anybody knows that this is a horrible deal. Like, just what people went through, the victims, what was allowed to go on, whoever knew what and how much. I mean, it's clear, obvious, apparent that Dr. Anderson was not the only one that knew he was doing some shit he shouldn't have been doing. I mean, like that. There's no question. It's impossible.
They had nicknames for him. If
exactly.
I read that right, I don't remember what they were, but yeah, it was common knowledge, and I think there was even. I don't know if it was in the report or something else that I had read, but you and I discussed it, where there was even times where it was a joke, like, get your shit together or we'll send you to the doctor,
Yeah.
So it's not like it was one of those things that wasn't being discussed openly.
Right. And so what I can't help but I'm not changing my tune on this at all. I think the statue comes down. I think you rename it. I think you remove stuff that depicts Bo Schembechler from around the program. I think it's an easy fix. I think it's common sense. I think in the grand scheme, it doesn't even really hurt anything. I mean, like I said, the players that are on the team right now and the recruits coming up, they don't know about them. They don't care.
Right.
It won't affect anything negatively at all. But I can't help but put myself inside Jim Harbaugh's head a little bit, where, I mean, he revered this guy. He loved this man. He was his coach. He wears the skinny block M hat just like him. He conducts himself like Bo. He does a lot of things like Bo. I thought about it in this way, like it's probably slightly different if you use a parent as the comparison, but like, you've got your parents. They've always been your parents. They've always done some things for you. If you found out that they did something really bad, a crime, something illegal, like, you're not just suddenly going to hate them. Like, they're still your parents. Like, they're still going to be like all the great things that they did for you, all the advantages they gave you, all the praise that they gave you. That's how Jim Harbaugh looked at Bo Schembechler until this stuff came out. And I just would be really curious to hear what he has to say. I would assume that he would say that he didn't think anything was going on like that. It's just a really, really crazy situation that is taking place, a long time after these events took place, but that also should matter to me. I know it's unfortunate that the two main people we're talking about are dead, but I don't really think that matters. I mean, there's enough people alive who can speak to what went on that something needs to be done. Something needs to take place.
Well, here's what I would say, as far as what's probably going through Jim Harbaugh's head and how he's processing this information and how people at Michigan are processing this information. The primary focus unquestionably has to be on the people who were, I don't know if victim is the right word to use, but the people who were impacted by this directly, and doing right by those folks. And so if it means taking down a statue or if we get to a point where we're vacating wins, which, you kind of get into an area there where now you're punishing student athletes almost twice, right? The guys that had to go through that. And then you're also taking away, their accomplishments on the field. It gets a little bit tricky, but ultimately I think that the people who were unfortunate enough to experience this with him, they have to be first and foremost in the minds of guys like Jim Harbaugh and Ward Manuel when they address the media, no matter what Jim Harbaugh's personal feelings are towards Bo Schembechler, because you're right. It's hard to, like, in an instant just say, okay, well, I hate the guy. The guy's a piece of shit. Whatever it is, it's just not going to happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to come to terms with the fact that 800 people aren't going to go out of their way to say, yeah, I was a part of this, when, nobody wants to be a part of that. Nobody wants to have their name associated with that. So, the fact that these people are coming forward, I just think, like I said initially, Michigan has to really, really, really get this right.
Yeah, I agree. So, and this is where, and I'm not gonna have animosity towards anybody on both sides of this. Like I said, the age that I am and the lack of connection I feel to Bo Schembechler, I don't have one. I wouldn't bat an eye if they took the statue down and renamed the hall. I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't. But you're gonna get people. You're going to get people who feel out. This is a really long comment, but you're going to get people who feel like this. Somebody who worshipped Bo Schembechler in Michigan football during that time would feel disappointed, betrayed if it was proven. But let's wait until there's more facts, hear from the people around before we talk about tearing down the statues and renaming things.
Not to get combative, because I think, that's a good point, but isn't that what this report is?
That's what I was going to say.
You're not going to get, the only facts you're going to get in this case are the people who suffered through it and had to experience it. You're not, there's not going to be any DNA sampling or anything like that.
Video evidence or audio recordings. Yeah. Well, that's not what's happening.
But you do have to, you can't just say, well, show me the evidence in this instance, because there's not going to be this many people coming forward, especially when the doctors passed Bo Schembechler. Like, there's no incentive to do this now, given the current circumstances, other than just for the truth to be out there and for people to, sort of make decisions once the truth is out. But, in terms of gathering evidence, like, this is the evidence. The report is the evidence. And if you read that report, it would be hard to imagine somebody walking away from reading that saying, okay, well, I'm going to need a little bit more, because it's pretty graphic. If you read it, it's not a pleasant read, and the details that are in there, it's really hard to poke holes in that.
It's 240 pages long, and it was an independent firm that was paid for by Michigan. This is not some external, rival faction with an axe to grind. Like, Michigan funded this thing because it was that. I mean, that also was the right thing to do to get to the bottom of this and to find out what really went on. The only thing I would say is that a lot of people are probably going to make a lot of money off of this. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits. I mean, the stuff that happened at Michigan State was in the hundreds of millions, I believe, or tens of millions for sure, at least. But again, I'm with you. I mean, this 240-page report with quotes and specific examples and different people involved and years of digging and diving, like, that's the evidence. That is those are the facts that are going to determine that some wrongdoing was taking place. So, like I said, I'm not going to stand up and pound the table and scream and yell at people who think about Bo in a different way than I do, because they were, they're 10 or 15 or 20 years older than me, and they have this opinion of him as when they were kids watching Michigan football. Like, I totally get that angle, but I just think that what's been said and what's been made pretty clear to me is enough to take some of those things down that have his stamp and his mark all over the program. I just think that's the easiest thing. Like, and for those people who think of Bo that way, like, you still can. Removing a statue is not like, that shouldn't make you like less of a fan of him. I don't know. It's just a weird all around idea for people who think about Bo that way. Again, I don't. And I didn't before this. This is not because of like what I found out. Like, I just have never felt all that special about Bo Schembechler. I mean,
right, I was going to say, you and I have talked about this before, that, you almost kind of cringe when you hear somebody say, those who stay will be champions, yeah. or they reference back to, if there's an issue with the team now, well, if Bo were here, X, Y, and Z wouldn't happen. And it's like that stuff makes my skin crawl. So, but that is also separate, that I don't think that's impacting the way I view this. I view this just as a human being. And, the reality is, if you're somebody like Bo Schembechler and you're in a position of power, and you are aware that these things are going on, you have a responsibility. I don't care if it's the 1960s, the 1970s, the 2000s, whatever the case is. If you are aware that something like this is going on, you have a duty to do something about it. And from the sounds of this report, it sounds like he didn't, but he was certainly not the only one in Michigan that did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I just wonder now. Now I just find myself wondering if we're going to hear from Harbaugh and Ward Manuel, and if
Have
not,
to.
like, dude, if they go from now until fall camp,
Can't happen. It
it's a
can't happen.
it's a bad look. It's going to be
So,
a bad look from a lot of people's perspectives. A lot of people's perspectives. I mean, they're going to have to talk about it. They're going to have to do something. I don't know if it'll be an open media availability or if it'll be a released statement or a released video message. I mean, they've done both of those things before, but I think it absolutely needs to be addressed by both at some point.
well, I'll say this: when it comes to these things, like, you only have one shot to have your first response to
Mm-hmm.
it, right? And you can't. I don't know. You can't sound tone deaf. You can't. It just has to be approached very carefully, and it would be unfortunate if Michigan dropped the ball and sort of took a very passive stance as we'll just sort of wait and see what happens. Like, I feel like, given how extensive this was, how many people came forward, how many people participated in this, how many people were interviewed, uh, they really need to they need to put some thought into what they say, and then you have to there's got to be some action somewhere. You got to do something about it. A good place to start, an easy place to start, is by removing statues and taking slogans or pictures or names off the wall. I mean, that's the easiest thing you can do, the quickest thing you can do.
Yeah, I know there's gonna be a lot of people that don't want that. There's gonna be and
there's no question about it.
And you know what? One of them's coaching the team. I mean, I don't think there's
right.
Fair. We don't know that for sure, but I cannot really imagine, Jim Harbaugh being like totally fine with that. Like, I think if he really thinks this thing through and gets some counsel from some people, he would realize that that's probably the right thing. But I can't imagine him, being like fine with it. I think it would hurt him. I think it would hurt him knowing how he's talked about Bo in the past and what, how he models himself. And again, like the mantras that he lives by and the slogans around the program and the picture of himself with Bo on his wall in his office, like that would suck for him. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that at this point, based on that report. Bo 100% knew that something was going on with that doctor, and he was able to do it for 40 years. Bo stopped coaching in 89. Then he became the athletic director, and still nothing happened. I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable for something like that to be allowed to go on. It sucks. It sucks that we have to talk about something like this after a decent blast of good news with the hiring of Steve Clinkscale. We talked about that a little bit already. It was made official earlier today. Michigan put out a release. I still think it's a really big deal. I went on the M Zone and talked about it with Jamie Morris and Dennis Fithian, and that was our shifted beyond the podcast version of that day. And now there's just a lot going on right now. We feel the need to waiting another day.
It comes in waves though, right? Like there's days where there's like nothing. And then all of a sudden, you go out to cut the grass, or you run up to grab a bite to eat. You come back and somebody's transferred, a new coach was hired, and there's something else going on. So yeah, I mean, obviously the hiring of Clinkscale was big, and it sounds like it's a hit with current players and recruits, and so that's awesome. And you're right, it's unfortunate that a story like this has to sort of be front and center. But we talked about this offline a little bit. I don't think we would be doing our job if we didn't address it. If we just sort of ignored it as one of those things that's happening off in the distance. I mean, unfortunate as it may be, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be talked about.
Yeah, we did. We debated. You and I had a phone call and a conversation and said, this isn't really sports, but it's obviously all Michigan. I mean, it's all Michigan.
Yeah.
we got to make a decision on whether or not we want to go at this. And I think we need to. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I think there's a lot of people who aren't talking about it. And I think that's disingenuous. So nothing wrong with having an opinion about things. If anybody knows that, it's me. I get a lot of flack for having an opinion sometimes, but it is what it is. I mean, I've said it. I've said it once. If I've said it 100 times, if it's good, it's good. I'll say that. If it's bad, I'll say it's bad. And this is bad. This Dr. Anderson thing is really bad. On the flip side, Steve Clinkscale coming to Michigan is really good. I mean, like really good. As much as I liked what Mo Linguist did in the short time he was at Michigan, this is an upgrade. This is an upgrade over Mo Linguist immediately. I think he becomes he's the best recruiter on the staff now. I think as soon as he steps on campus, like he's that good at recruiting, and he's put guys in the league, and he's made Kentucky's defense into something respectable, at least in the secondary, whatever he's had control over. So you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this on a broadcast or, over a podcast or anything yet. So just kind of curious where you fall on this after the dust has settled a little bit and it's official.
Well, I would say that, part of what we're excited about with the new coaching staff is that they got significantly younger, significantly more diverse, and we think that will hopefully pay dividends. But one of the concerns was, in addition to how many new guys were there, was that they were all young and relatively inexperienced in the positions that they were going to hold at Michigan. And so I think when you bring in a guy like Clinkscale, he's obviously got not just tremendous experience, but experience at the collegiate level and a track record of success. Whereas Mo Linguist was sort of, even though there was all the promise in the world to believe that he was going to become something, he was somewhat of an unknown commodity. And so I agree with you. I think it is an upgrade. I think, give Jim Harbaugh credit for what he did. He wasted no time finding a replacement. Obviously, they made the guy an offer he couldn't refuse, and Michigan is better off because he's in Ann Arbor. So all good things.
Yeah, this is a feather in the cap for Jim Harbaugh. It really is, man. And he hasn't had a lot of those, in my opinion, in recent months. Like when you look at all the hires that he's made, I don't really think I hated any of them, but there were several that I questioned at least. I'm like, head scratcher. We talked about it. Matt Weiss is a little bit of a head scratcher. We don't know what to expect with Mike McDonald. We don't really know how Sharon Moore is going to do on the O-line, even though I love Sharon as a coach and as a recruiter, and I know him personally a little bit. This one's not a head scratcher, like in any way, shape, or form. He's a proven commodity. He knows what he's doing. He can recruit. He can coach. He might be the oldest coach on the staff now, which is crazy. I think he's only like 42 or 43. 40s,
right?
Yeah, early 40s. But that again speaks to the shift of what Jim Harbaugh tried to do: get younger, get more diverse. I thought about it this way, and I heard this. Michigan made a run at Clinkscale before, and he wasn't feeling it. He wasn't feeling the way the staff was set up or the situation or whatever. You have to think, as the cornerbacks coach and what was the other part of his title? Defensive passing game coordinator and cornerbacks coach. So a little bit more involved than just your standard position coach. If he had taken the job earlier, he would have had to sit down in the war room and try to figure things out with Don Brown, 65-year-old white dude, Bob Shoop, 50, 60-year-old white dude, and Matt Dudek on the recruiting side of things, another, 30, 40-year-old white dude. Now he gets to sit down with Mike McDonald, who's 33, white guy, but 33, Ron Bellamy, who looks like him, and Courtney Morgan, who also, is African American. I think that makes a huge difference with the kind of people you're going to be spending time with, the kind of people that you're going to be around all day, every day. And from what I've heard, that was a big part of why he was okay with it this time around, was just the fit, the feel, the vibe, the energy, the younger guys on staff. It just made more sense to him. I don't think the terms of the contract were released in terms of the amount yet. I'm sure we will hear about that soon, or we can find that out within the coming days. Probably a raise, if I had to guess. Mo Linguist was set to make $680,000 this year, and that's more than Clinkscale was making at Kentucky. So I would assume he's stepping into a role at a bigger school, bigger stage, more money. It just, and he likes the people that he's going to be around. He has a relationship with Ron Bellamy, a close one, because he recruited Michigan really hard. He's landed some guys from West Bloomfield, so it just fit much better. There's just a lot more going for Michigan in terms of bringing Clinkscale in now than there was a handful of months ago. So it's crazy that as much as I liked Linguist in the short time he was at Michigan and how it looked like he was trending up, that this is like already better, and it looks like it's also trending up. So I think just a great job by Jim Harbaugh to get it done quickly, and just keep it moving. What was it, 48 hours, something like that?
If
Not
that, I
even.
mean, that was, as far as we know, but who knows how quickly, they were on the phone and hashing things out. So it was quick. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, they didn't waste any time getting a replacement in for Mo Linguist, and now Steve Clinkscale was announced today. I'm sure he's probably either in Ann Arbor or darn close, going to be there,
On his way.
within a day's time or so to get going and get started on everything. It's just now he won't really see the guys he's working with until fall camp starts. It's not an ideal time to be making this move, but that's not really Michigan's fault. I mean, the Buffalo job opened up, they went after Linguist and got him. So then, they had to fill it any way that they could. So we'll see how that looks. I'm curious to what you think about that. I've talked about this before. I really like the Mike Hart hire. I think he's an upgrade over Jay Harbaugh as the running backs coach. We just talked about how high we are on Clinkscale. I'm just curious as to what you think in terms of the level of impact that an assistant coach makes, like on the wins and losses of a team.
Individually, I wouldn't say much. Collectively, it's a big deal. And you alluded to the fact that at one point in time, Clinkscale wasn't really interested in coming to Michigan. It wasn't a good fit, and now at this point, it seems like it's a good fit. And it might speak to what we've been hearing from some of the players and some of the other coaches that are there, that this wholesale change by Jim Harbaugh to get younger and get more diverse has created an energy and enthusiasm among the team that hasn't been there, since Jim Harbaugh arrived back in Ann Arbor. And so, I know you and I sort of take those things with a grain of salt, right? People, if they say, the energy's great and the energy's off the charts, well, or we're playing music at practice, that's all fine and good. We'll see what it equates to in terms of success on the football field. But, to answer your question, I don't think one assistant coach is necessarily the difference maker. But I think when you have a collection of guys who work really, really well together and are on the same page, we talked about this before, a lot of those little differences add up to one big difference. And, certainly Jim Harbaugh has made a lot of little changes, from 2020 to now. There's not a lot that's the same. And so hopefully a lot of those little changes are going to add up to, a really big boost and a lot of success on the football field come fall.
Sorry. I'm sorry to smile.
Never apologize for smiling.
This is so stupid. My wife texted me in the middle of this while we're sitting here. And
yours too?
Yeah, she sent me a picture of an article. Amazing. So, I mean, I actually haven't, I don't, the whole mask wearing thing, it's not awesome, but I don't really care. I'll wear a mask. I will say this, I'm lucky enough to work from home. I don't have to wear one for very long if I go out to the store or whatever. Yeah. I know for people who have to wear one all day while they're working, that must be pretty bad.
If you're in the service industry,
it would suck.
Waitress, awful.
It would suck. But she sent me this picture of an article, and it says, man slowly eats bag of Cheetos all day so he doesn't have to wear a mask. And I'm like, and it's like a guy pounding Cheetos, because you have to wear a mask when you walk into a restaurant, when you walk into a place, but there's this little gray area. If you're taking a drink or eating something, people are kind of oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
So we do that all day long.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
We flew down to Florida probably about a month ago at this point, and masks in the airport. But as soon as we sat down at the airport bar to have a couple drinks before we took off, it was off they come. And so it's definitely a little bit strange. There's no question about it.
So we're talking about that kind of in a funny way, but it's things are looking up, man. We're starting to see more people at sporting events. It sounds, I know Gretchen Whitmer just had a little bit of an update yesterday or the day before, and started talking about, the next phase, when you get to certain percentages and everything like that around the state, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember the exact numbers, but every time you hit a new milestone, you get more of those things back. We talked about it before. What are we going to see, man? Is it going to be full big house, 100,000 plus?
I'll be honest. I just don't see it. I can't. And it's weird that we're at a place where picturing the big house full of 110,000 people just feels like so far from reality. But you see certainly that there's an appetite for it among SEC programs and schools that are fully intending on having, LSU, for example, is planning on doing 100,000 plus. They're going to be at capacity. And I think 7 of the SEC schools have already said that that's what they're planning for. And it does seem like things are trending that way. And so, we talked about it not too long ago. I think it was a Texas baseball game, where there was a full crowd on hand, and you watch it on TV. Like I saw the highlights on ESPN, and it was just such a strange sight. I didn't know how to feel about a full stadium. I was excited. I was a little bit, confused. And what does this mean? And, is there going to be another, I guess a big spread of the virus or whatever the case is? So personally, I don't see it happening, but I would like to see it happen. I think it would be great to be sitting in a stadium full of 110,000 Michigan fans and to be in that environment again. Man, I'm really looking, when and if that happens, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it seems like a virtual guarantee that there will be some tens of thousands of people there, right? Like there's got to be at least a 20, 30, 40, maybe half.
I was going to say, I think 30 to 50 is a safe bet.
Maybe half, maybe they get to that 50% mark. But I'm with you. I don't think it'll be full just yet, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see if if those numbers keep increasing in terms of people getting vaccinated and there's a better way to track that a little bit more. I don't know. I think there was some stuff that's come out over the last handful of months too, where some, like maybe it was like the Buffalo Bills are only letting vaccinated people in. And I don't know. I'm sure they're not alone in that at this point. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it looks. And I mean, from our standpoint, I hope they let the media come back this year so we can be there live and in person to see what's going on, pre-game stuff, post-game stuff, the pressers, recruiting stuff that's going on down on the field during the pregame, where the recruits are at in the stands while the game's going on, like all that needs to come back because it's important, man. It is like, I've been diligent. I know you have too, and trying to do the right thing and keep people safe and healthy, but like, as it gets safer, like it's time for people to experience some normalcy again, for sure.
It has been a long stretch. Like I think back to March and how weird it was when you first heard, before they even canceled the men's NCAA tournament, how strange it was to hear that they were gonna play in empty arenas. And just the thought of like basketball playing, and now it's like, yeah, of course you play in an empty arena, there's not anybody there. So now it's like, it only took a year for that to totally flip to the point where now full stadiums seem like, it just seems unimaginable that we could kick off week 1 against Western Michigan and have over 100,000 in the big house. So I hope that people keep doing, all they can to, to get this thing, keep it heading in the right direction. Cause I think all of us want to be there. That's ultimately, we all want the same thing. We all want everything back the way it was. And, hopefully we get there sooner than later.
That's regardless of that doesn't even matter what you think about the vaccine or I mean, like we just all want back to normal. I mean, like we can all agree that the end goal is the same. So, hopefully we'll see that, man. And like I said, as new updates continue to come out and the numbers continue to go up for the vaccinated people, I'm thinking 50% capacity is very, very possible and maybe even likely. I don't know. We'll see if we get to 100K. That would be sweet, but I don't know if I'm ready to bank on that just yet. Any thoughts out there from the people that are still watching? We had a pretty high number when we first launched. Now we're down to like in the 20s. It's fluctuating between 20 and 30. I can see it, by the way, Chris. I know we talked about wondering like it shows like who's here from Twitter, who's here from where, all the different locations. So I mean, thoughts from anybody out there on this StreamYard platform? Chris, thoughts from you? What we talked about? What what other kinds of things we might need to talk before we put a cap on this thing here after 10 o'clock tonight?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of doing this, I think it's great, for you and I to hop on, once, twice, maybe even 3 times a week, depending on what comes up or what's in the news. But, I think, it's been a weird week, a really good thing happened and then a not so good thing happened. And, as is the case, we'll just continue to digest everything and report on it. And, keep working our way to the fall, because it still seems like a very long ways away.
It's a good bit. It's a good bit, but we will get there. We will get there. This is not the first. Zach Woodruff 3, I think, from my Twitter page, has asked this a couple of times. I kind of skipped it on purpose the first time, but like, why not? I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking about it a little bit. So I'll throw the question up there. It's probably a little bit premature, but it's fun to think about if you kind of remove the reason why for now, because there are some pretty cool answers you could come up with. So I'll throw it up there and we'll see what we say. If Schembechler Hall is renamed, where could you go? Where could you go with?
Immediately, my mind went to Woodson right off the bat. I think that
Hall of Famer.
But is it? I don't know. I know that it's standard practice to name these after people, but maybe that's not a safe bet, just given the way the world works and the way things come out, and you slap a name on something, and you can find yourself in a tricky spot. So maybe, but I went right to Woodson.
Maybe the Harmon Howard Woodson football facilities. The three Heisman winners.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could go. Do you want to get away from the one person name thing and maybe make it more about the program, the school?
Yeah.
That's tough.
The Victor's Hall or something like that.
Victory Hall or something like that.
Victory Hall. Hey, actually, I kind of like that. Victory Hall.
Well, I'll throw Zach's up again. We got some love from Zach right now. There we go. That's what we'll call it. We'll call it Wolverine Digest Hall, man. How about that?
I can't think of a better name.
That's pretty funny. Oh, this is a good question. We'll throw this up here. I'm going to take this banner off real quick because we're kind of talking about a lot of different stuff right now. What's the first day Clinkscale can see his DBs in person? I think it's the first day of camp. Like the coaches can't be around for any of the player-led summer workouts or anything like that. They fudge those a little bit, like, oh, I walked by so and so today or whatever. But like in terms of actually getting their hands on them and working with them, I think it's going to be the first day of camp.
Isn't that what caused the dust up between Harbaugh and Day last year on a conference call? Was on-field instruction accusations during the summer?
It goes on, man. It goes on, and like it was the same way with recruiting. They made up like the Saban bump rule because he would be like, "Oh, I just saw this random 5-star kid in Texas at the Denny's." Like, oops. Oh, randomly, huh? You were just in Texas at Denny's at the same time as that kid. No, but yeah, it's that's something I'll have to look into. Is that Trepa Coles? I'll do some digging and find out exactly a hard answer on that. But to me, where they're at in the season right now, spring ball is obviously over, and I mean, like, they can't do structured practices or workouts again until fall camp hits, and that's like August. I don't know, first week of August or something like that for the opener to be on September 4th. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know how much I don't know how much interaction they can have with, like, can you call them up and do Zoom meetings? Can you do any chalk talk thing? Can you send them stuff to their team issue iPads and have them go over stuff? Like, that's some of the intricacies of the program that I'm not super familiar with. I could probably find out. Never really had a reason to before, but I'll do some digging on that and see what I can come up with. But that's a good question. And yeah, that is something that I immediately thought about after, doing spring football as early as they did this year. They finished it earlier than they obviously usually do, and that meant that it's done and over with, and then Linguist leaves, so you got to find a replacement, and he can't even work with his guys until like it's damn near go time. So
yeah,
that's not ideal. That's you'd rather have to not do that. That was one of the things that Rico asked me about today, like, how big of a deal is that? I actually don't think it's that big of a deal, because you still have Mike McDonald, the system's still the same. I would assume all the verbiage and all the language and all the terminology is going to be the same. The guys have everything that they went through during spring ball all loaded up to be able to watch film and watch their reps and learn about their position. It's going to be more getting Clinkscales up to speed, in my opinion. So I actually don't think there's going to be that much of a negative development, even though you'd rather not do it this way, but it is what it is at this point.
And it's a guy that's been around for a while. So I would think that just his experience and, his track record, I don't think whatever the ramp up time is going to be, it's going to be pretty, it's going to be a small window for him to get up to speed and do what he needs to do. So
yeah, he's not going to come in and be like, what is this? What are they doing? Like, and I think, I think DB coach would probably fall some DB coach, DB scheme, DB technique, learning. I would put that like somewhere in the middle of like on the difficult scale. I think like, O-line, quarterback, linebackers really hard. I think receiver, running back is probably a little bit easier. I think DB, safety, corner, probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. Former DBs and safeties might take up issue with me on that, but I think that's probably fair. I used to be a defensive backs coach. It's no big deal. It's whatever. We went undefeated my first year coaching, but it's fine. I mean, it's not that.
It is what it is.
Yeah. No
biggie.
I'm being an idiot. That's actually true. I was a defensive backs coach for a powerhouse middle school team in South Carolina. But I just think like in the grand scheme of like what it takes to learn the position, like that doesn't seem as difficult as some of the other ones. But like you said, Clinkscale knows his stuff, been around the block. He knows how to do the job. You've got some veteran guys playing there too. I mean, however good you think Jamon Green and Vincent Gray and some of those other guys are, they've been around football. Yeah. So, and they're learning new stuff. They're learning new stuff from McDonald's. So we'll see how that turns out. But I think that's going to be about it. It's getting a little late. I'm going to try to mess with some of this after we hang up here and see how this goes in terms of turning this into some additional content for the site, video clips, podcast, audio, things of that sort. So again, thanks to everybody for dropping in and listening to us ramble for a little bit here. The number is quite small now, but it was like up at 100 or over 100 for a while there. And it's,
it's not bad for a trial run, right?
It's 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, man. I mean,
nightcap.
This isn't exactly like prime time of when we would maybe want to normally do this, but I think it went well. StreamYard looks to be pretty dope. We'll keep messing with that. And just for people out there, there's a lot of different things that we can do with it. We messed around with it a little bit yesterday. You can do some overlay stuff where you throw some pictures in there, so that way you guys can see what we're talking about if we bring something up of that nature. So throw that up. I mean, that's just a sample picture, but you can put a picture up like that and see it. We had a beef on this, right? We thought you should be able to move it to the side.
I don't get why. Yeah, with the photo, it doesn't make any sense. But overall, solid. Very solid.
You can't do that. I'll throw this up here just for a second. This is a preview for. Haven't done anything with this yet. I recorded this quite a while ago, with one of the staff writers for the Washington site.
Washington fans who might not.
I think you got. Could you hear that, Chris? I think you can hear that, right? So we can play video like this and talk about it as we go. Yeah, so I think this is going to be good. We're excited about the opportunity to use more video. Hopefully that might even turn into some cool game day stuff. If I do get back down onto the field, kind of that's up for debate right now. But we'll see. But hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Again, thanks for tuning in. What's tomorrow? Thursday. We'll try to get back onto our regular podcast schedule. Maybe just kick this back to Friday, and we'll see how that goes. But we will have some more stuff out tomorrow on the Bo Schembechler, Dr. Anderson situation, saga, whatever you want to call it. I think the statue should go. I think the name should go, and I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna talk about that tomorrow in a written article and put that out there for people to see. But we were both quite clear here, I think. So we'll get back to it later part of the week. Thanks to everybody out there for listening. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on our podcast. You can check that out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you do your podcast, the Wolverine Digest podcast. We're going to keep bringing it to you. Keep bringing some, I don't know. Are we funny? I try to be funny.
I think I'm funny. You're funny. You're a funny guy.
All right. There we go, guys. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.